Lesson 27. The Vasa. First listen and then answer the following question. What happened to the Vasa almost immediately after she was launched? From the 17th century Empire of Sweden, the story of a galleon that sank at the start of her maiden voyage in 1628 must be one of the strangest tales of the sea. For nearly 3.5 centuries, she lay at the bottom of Stockholm Harbor until her discovery in 1956. This was the Vasa, royal flagship of the great imperial fleet. King Gustavus Adolphus, the Northern Hurricane, then at the height of his military success in the 30 Years' War, had dictated her measurements and armament. Triple gun decks mounted 64 bronze cannon. She was intended to play a leading role in the growing might of Sweden. As she was prepared for her maiden voyage on August 10th, 1628, Stockholm was in a ferment. From the Skeppsbron and surrounding islands, the people watched this thing of beauty begin to spread her sails and catch the wind. They had labored for 3 years to produce this floating work of art. She was more richly carved and ornamented than any previous ship. The high stern castle was a riot of carved gods, demons, knights, kings, warriors, mermaids, cherubs, and zoomorphic animal shapes ablazed with red and gold and blue. Symbols of courage, power, and cruelty were portrayed to stir the imaginations of the superstitious sailors of the day. Then the cannons of the anchored warships thundered a salute, to which the Vasa fired in reply. As she emerged from her drifting cloud of gun smoke, with the water churned to foam beneath her bow, her flags flying, pennants waving, sails filling in the breeze, and the red and gold of her superstructure ablaze with color, she presented a more majestic spectacle than Stockholmers had ever seen before. All gun ports were open, and the muzzles peeped wickedly from them. As the wind freshened, there came a sudden squall, and the ship made a strange movement, listing to port. The ordnance officer ordered all the port cannon to be heaved to starboard to counteract the list, but the steepening angle of the decks increased. Then the sound of rumbling thunder reached the watchers on the shore as cargo, ballast, ammunition, and 400 people went sliding and crashing down to the port side of the steeply listing ship. The lower gun ports were now below water, and the inrush sealed the ship's fate. In that first glorious hour, the mighty Vasa, which was intended to rule the Baltic, sank with all flags flying in the harbor of her birth. Roy Sanders, The Raising of the Vasa, from The Listener.
Lesson 28. Patients and Doctors. First listen and then answer the following question. What are patients looking for when they visit the doctor? This is a skeptical age, but although our faith in many of the things in which our forefathers fervently believed has weakened, our confidence in the curative properties of the bottle of medicine remains the same as theirs. This modern faith in medicines is proved by the fact that the annual drug bill of the health services is mounting to astronomical figures and shows no signs at present of ceasing to rise. The majority of the patients attending the medical outpatients departments of our hospitals feel that they have not received adequate treatment unless they are able to carry home with them some tangible remedy in the shape of a bottle of medicine, a box of pills, or a small jar of ointment, and the doctor in charge of the department is only too ready to provide them with these requirements. There is no quicker method of disposing of patients than by giving them what they are asking for. And since most medical men in the health services are overworked and have little time for offering time-consuming and little appreciated advice on such subjects as diet, right living, and the need for abandoning bad habits, etc., the bottle, the box, and the jar are almost always granted them. Nor is it only the ignorant and ill-educated person who has such faith in the bottle of medicine. It is recounted of Thomas Carlyle that when he heard of the illness of his friend, Henry Taylor, he went off immediately to visit him, carrying with him in his pocket what remained of a bottle of medicine formerly prescribed for an indisposition of Mrs. Carlyle's. Carlyle was entirely ignorant of what the bottle in his pocket contained, of the nature of the illness from which his friend was suffering, and of what had previously been wrong with his wife. But a medicine that had worked so well in one form of illness would surely be of equal benefit in another, and comforted by the thought of the help he was bringing to his friend, he hastened to Henry Taylor's house. History does not relate whether his friend accepted his medical help, but in all probability he did. The great advantage of taking medicine is that it makes no demands on the taker beyond that of putting up for a moment with a disgusting taste, and that is what all patients demand of their doctors, to be cured at no inconvenience to themselves. Kenneth Walker, Patients and Doctors.
Lesson 29. The Hovercraft. First listen and then answer the following question. What is a hovercraft riding on when it is in motion? Many strange new means of transport have been developed in our century, the strangest of them being perhaps the hovercraft. In 1953, a former electronics engineer in his 50s, Christopher Cockerell, who had turned to boat building on the Norfolk Broads, suggested an idea on which he had been working for many years to the British government and industrial circles. It was the idea of supporting a craft on a pad or cushion of low-pressure air, ringed with a curtain of higher-pressure air. Ever since, people have had difficulty in deciding whether the craft should be ranged among ships, planes, or land vehicles, for it is something in between a boat and an aircraft. As a shipbuilder, Cockerell was trying to find a solution to the problem of the wave resistance which wastes a good deal of a surface ship's power and limits its speed. His answer was to lift the vessel out of the water by making it ride on a cushion of air, no more than 1 or 2 feet thick. This is done by a great number of ring-shaped air jets on the bottom of the craft. It flies, therefore, but it cannot fly higher. Its action depends on the surface, water or ground over which it rides. The first tests on the Solent in 1959 caused a sensation. The hovercraft traveled first over the water, then mounted the beach, climbed up the dunes, and set down on a road. Later, it crossed the channel, riding smoothly over the waves, which presented no problem. Since that time, various types of hovercraft have appeared and taken up regular service. The hovercraft is particularly useful in large areas with poor communications, such as Africa or Australia, it can become a flying fruit bowl, carrying bananas from the plantations to the ports. Giant hovercraft liners could span the Atlantic, and the railway of the future may well be the hover train, riding on its air cushion over a single rail, which it never touches, at speeds up to 300 miles per hour. The possibilities appear unlimited. Egon Larson, The Pegasus Book of Inventors.